the air that I breathe, the blood in my veins.
All right, so talk to me about that. What was that about? Go ahead. Teamwork. There are obviously thinkers and communicators and leaders. Okay. What else? Visionary. What does that mean?
Someone who could see the solution and guide everyone through it.
All right. Someone who could see the solution and guide everyone through it. All right.
Couldn't solve everything all at one time. You had to sort of do it.
Okay. You had to do things one at a time. You couldn't do it all at once. All right. What else? The question was, what did you notice, or what was going on in that room with that rope? Yes.
Well, it took all of us working together. And then the second part was that once we figured out that you had said hold on to the rope. Didn't mean that we couldn't move the rope with our hands. So
Okay.
I realized you could slide the rope to give you more leeway.
Okay.
So you didn't let go of the rope.
Okay.
It took us a while to get to that point where, oh no, we're so bound by,
Okay. So being bound by what I said and the rules. Okay. Cool.
And error.
What's that?
Trial and error.
Trial and error. Yeah.
Trying something, seeing what worked, didn't work.
Trying something, seeing what worked and what didn't work. Did anyone hear someone say, "Well, our nut is out. We're done"? Anybody hear somebody say that? I heard that. Right. Right. Now, what was the task? The task was given to what? To get the knots out of the rope, right? So if there was a knot by me and I got it out, is the task done? No, it's just not by me. And there was one group, there were a couple of groups actually, that kept sliding the knots down. They're like, we don't want to deal with these knots. Let's have somebody else work with it, right? Those must be people on the 7th floor. I don't know. Passing stuff off. All right. I work on the 7th floor, by the way. So, all right. Yeah. So what do you think that has to do with communication? How is that? What does that have to do with cross-cultural communication, which is what we're here to talk about?
If you move your knot down, you don't see a problem anymore.
If you move your knot down, you don't see a problem anymore, right? A lot of times when we talk about cross-cultural communication, we don't see problems because we don't have problems, and we don't have problems because we can't see the problem, right? So it's not necessarily our problem, right? But if we're all connected on this rope in our society, right? If we're not all untied, if we're not all free, then we are all what? In a knot, right? We're all in a knot. All right? So today we're going to talk about how do we start to untie some of those knots, and looking at cultures and how, some ways in which we can become powerful in dealing with other folks. All right? So if you open up your little booklet, and I have extras if anyone didn't get one. All right? All right. Fold that in half. There's another and a third. There's a third. All right. So first of all, let's talk about what diversity is. Particularly the concept of diversity that I'm working from and that I'm working on. Diversity is understanding why we are more alike than we're different. Understanding how we perceive our differences, understanding that we can change our behaviors and our beliefs, understanding that we can respect someone that differs from us. That's what diversity is. All right? Diversity is not these things. It is not political correctness. It is not groupthink or brainwashing. It is not therapy for those who are oppressed. It is not bashing someone else because of our hurt. And it is not tolerance. It is not tolerance. Now, why would I say, the most striking thing for me is the tolerance piece, right? Why is diversity, what we're talking about, not about tolerance? Because I know you've heard people say, let's learn, let's teach tolerance, let's, all that kind of stuff. But what does tolerance mean?
Put up with.
To put up with, right? I don't have to put up with this or that, the other thing, right? I tolerate it. And when I'm tired of tolerating it, I won't, right? So when we talk about cross-cultural communication and we talk about working with folks, we're not talking about tolerance. What we're talking about is just fundamental respect, right? Respect for ourselves and respect for other folks, all right? And here in the county, what we're moving from is just talking about diversity as this real abstract thing and talking about some behaviors and some thought patterns that will lead us to be an accepting workplace. All right? So we're moving from just talking about diversity to talking about cultural competence. Now, when you hear that word, what do you think cultural competence means? Right? What is cultural? Cultural, competence. What does competence mean?
Being good at it.
Being good at something, knowing something, having some information, right? And what is a culture? Different information is what else? It's a way of life, right? So understanding, being competent about other folks' cultures, all right? And we'll break down culture in just a little bit. On page 2 is the continuum of cultural competence. One is cultural destructiveness. That's when you call people names outside of what they like to be called, right? When you try to destroy other people, you try to make sure that anything that you can do to stop their progression in life, you do, right? Then there's cultural incapacity. I just don't know what to do, so I don't do anything, right? When you don't make a choice, that is in fact what? Making a choice, right? Silence is acceptance, right? So in level 2, it is cultural incapacity. 3, cultural blindness. Basically says, I don't see color. Color doesn't matter to me. We're all equal under the sun. Right? Now, the fact of the matter is what? Does race and culture, even though race does not exist, and we'll talk about that later, does that have an impact on our society? Yeah. So is it important that you see my color? Yes, because that means you recognize a big part of who I am. All of my filters of the information that I've gotten from the world are because I am black. Had I been brown or yellow or Native American, then I would be, the information would be different that I received. So to deny me that part of myself is denying a large part of who I am and my worldview. All right? And then pre-competence is where you kind of dabble in trying to understand other folks. Cultural competence is where you seek out information about other people, and you invite folks into your homes and that kind of stuff. And cultural proficiency is when you become an ally for people that you do not know. All right? So when there's a black issue, you just don't wait for the black people to stand up and talk about it, or the Chicanos to stand up and talk about it. You have some information, and you can say, "Wait a minute, I challenge that. Let's talk about this," and you become proficient in understanding cultural competence. All right. So let's turn to page 5. There's a continuum on page 4 that you'll look at on your own, but let's turn to page 5. Here are some of the working assumptions that we'll be working with today. Oppression is pervasive. It hurts all of us. Prejudice is taught, and we can unlearn it. It is not our fault, but it is, however, our responsibility. Prejudice, oppression, and discrimination are interwoven, but they are separate. All right? They're interwoven, but they are distinctly separate. We are both targets and in dominance of oppression, and we'll have some conversations about that as well. No hurt is greater than any other. We can learn, change, and grow. It's a lifelong process. Difference is not a deficit, it is a deposit. All right? And we are taught one way, and we can be taught to do something new. All right? On page 6, this is kind of how we got to where we are today. In our early years, we were taught about the world. From who? Our parents, right? Why are poor people poor? Anybody? Just tell me why you think poor people are poor. They're lazy. What else? Don't be scared. Unfortunate events. Don't be scared, all right? Don't be scared. So they're lazy. What's that? It's regional. Unfortunate events. What else? No what? No education. Chemically dependent, right? I'll tell you why poor people are poor. Poor people are poor because they were taught to be poor. Who taught poor people how to be poor? Other poor people. In most cases, it's their parent, right? Why are rich people rich?
Because their parents are rich.
Because they were taught to be rich, and mostly that is by their parents, right? So we can learn to be any kind of way, right? But we have to be exposed and taught that. So in our early years, we're given information. Then through the socialization process, that cycle gets reinforced. We internalize that information, right? And then we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to make a choice. Either we'll consistently believe that information, or we will look for other answers to that situation, right? Here's an example. Can anyone tell me who discovered America? Christopher Columbus. So how does that story go?
The Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria, they sailed over, they landed.
So Columbus was looking for what? He was looking for India or the New World, right? And what happens? He got lost, and where did he bump into? The West Indies. And he called those people Indians because he thought he was in India, right? Right? But the more famous folklore of that is Columbus set sail for the New World, found this new land, right? Founded this place called America, and invited all of his buddies to come along. And they prospered and lived in a wonderful, fabulous place, right? So in the early years, we're taught that. How is that the famous folklore, how is that reinforced by society? Columbus Day. We have parades, days off. There used to be cartoon specials on Columbus Day, right? But that cycle gets reinforced until what? What's the missing piece of that? There were people already here. I've been trying to figure out how I could find somebody's Lexus in their garage and get away with it, right? Right? But we all have choices. And when we come to the understanding that there were already people here, if we continue the myth, then we continue that cycle. Or we can make a tough choice and freedom. We can freedom, right? And make a choice. And that's all about choices. On page 7. So this is kind of where we are today. This is what we're going to start talking about here. What is bias? It's on the page, so you can read it right off of there. What's bias? It's your opinion, right? What else is bias?